There are moments on Welcome to Plathville that don't explode with shouting or big dramatic fights, but instead feel like the quietest, most unsettling gut punch you could ever witness. And one of those moments came when Ethan Plath, who has spent years trying to build his own life away from his parents' grip, completely broke down. What made that collapse even more haunting wasn't a physical blow-up, but a few soft words from his new wife Hannah, words that, to anyone paying close attention, sounded far too familiar. They were the exact same phrases his mother Kim once used to keep her children under control. Hi friends, my name is Christine, and welcome back to Inside Hollywood Couples. If you've been following this family drama with me, you know this show isn't just about reality TV chaos. It's about power, love, and the invisible strings that shape people's lives. So before we go further, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. I really want to know what you think about Ethan's collapse. Was it Hannah offering peace, or was it a repetition of Kim's control? Now here's why this moment matters so much. From the outside, Ethan's life looked like it was finally settling down. After years of explosive conflict with Olivia, Hannah appeared like the opposite, soft-spoken, calm, supportive. For Ethan, who was exhausted from family feuds and marital tension, Hannah's presence felt like a relief. It looked like the peace he'd been craving. But on screen, when Hannah repeated lines that were eerily close to Kim's, that relief suddenly twisted into something else. Fans watching could feel it too. The air shifted. Instead of freedom, it looked like Ethan had stepped back into the same prison he thought he escaped. And that's the hook of this entire story. The quietest words, framed as love and prayer, had the power to break Ethan down in a way arguments never could. Because when words echo trauma, when they carry the weight of a parent's control, they cut deeper than shouting ever could. Ethan's silence in that moment wasn't peace. It was collapse. To understand why Ethan's collapse was so powerful and so heartbreaking, we have to rewind. We have to go back to Kim Plath, the matriarch of the family, and remember the way she controlled her household. Because here's the truth. Kim didn't rule with screaming fits or wild punishments. She ruled with a smile, a soft voice, and words dressed up as wisdom. And that's what made her influence so dangerous. Think about the early seasons of Welcome to Plathville. On the surface, Kim seemed calm, composed, even holy. She wasn't yelling at her children to stay in line. Instead, she'd gently frame obedience as God's will, or suggest that independence was a path toward loneliness and sin. She would kneel down beside her kids, look them in the eye, and say things that sounded comforting, but carried hidden chains. If one of the children questioned her rules, she didn't need to argue. She'd simply say something like, "I just want what's best for your soul," or, "I've prayed about this, and I feel God leading us here." How do you fight back against that? For Ethan, being the eldest son, this dynamic shaped everything. He was the golden boy, the one who stayed in line the longest, the one who tried hardest to honor his parents' wishes. And when you grow up in an environment where control is disguised as love, it becomes almost impossible to recognize manipulation when you see it again later. You don't see chains, you see care. You don't hear domination, you hear peace. But the cost of that peace was silence. Kim's children learned to bury their real emotions. They learned to say, "Yes, ma'am," while their inner voice screamed, "No." And the longer it went on, the harder it became to tell the difference between genuine love and control disguised as it. And this is why Kim's influence lingers even now. Even after Ethan left the family home, even after he tried to build a new life with Olivia, her words still echo in his head. The idea that conflict means you're sinful, that questioning authority means you're ungrateful, that obedience equals love, these are the invisible rules Kim planted deep inside. So when Hannah, years later, begins using those exact same kinds of phrases, Ethan's body recognizes the pattern even if his brain doesn't. It's why the moment hits him so hard. Because to Ethan, it doesn't sound like his wife is simply concerned. It sounds like his mother all over again. When Hannah first entered Ethan's life, It looked like the answer to years of chaos. After everything with Olivia, the tension, the constant disagreements, the way every holiday felt like a battlefield, Ethan seemed desperate for calm, and Hannah, with her gentle voice and steady presence, seemed to give him exactly that. From the very first episodes, fans noticed how different she was from Olivia. Where Olivia was outspoken and unafraid to challenge the Plath family, Hannah appeared patient, agreeable, almost soothing. She didn't push Ethan to confront his past or stand up to his parents. Instead, she offered silence where Olivia offered confrontation, prayer where Olivia offered boundaries, and compliance where Olivia offered resistance. And at first, that felt like relief. For Ethan, who had grown up in a home where peace meant nobody rocking the boat, Hannah felt familiar, safe even. She didn't demand hard conversations. She didn't question family traditions in front of everyone. She made it easy for Ethan to breathe again. Viewers even commented that Hannah seemed like the healing presence Ethan needed after the storm. But here's the catch. Sometimes silence isn't peace. Sometimes silence is just the absence of noise. And in that quiet, the same old patterns can slip right back in unnoticed. Slowly, fans began noticing the subtle ways Hannah spoke to Ethan, the phrases she used, the way she framed concerns. They weren't aggressive, they weren't loud, but they carried an undertone that felt oddly familiar. One moment she would gently remind Ethan of his responsibilities. Another moment she would softly correct him in a way that made him shrink rather than stand tall. To the casual viewer, it might have looked like care, but to anyone who remembered Kim's methods, it sounded almost identical. Hannah's words weren't just words. They were echoes. Echoes of the very woman Ethan had spent years trying to escape. And for Ethan, that echo created confusion. Was this love? Was this peace? Or was this the same old cage, painted in softer colors? The tragedy is that Ethan couldn't always tell. And when those words came out of Hannah's mouth at just the wrong moment, it triggered something inside him that went far deeper than the present. It unlocked memories, fears, and wounds that had never really healed. The shift from comfort to collapse happened slowly, and then all at once. What made the moment so unsettling wasn't that Hannah raised her voice or made some dramatic accusation. No. It was that she spoke with the same calm certainty Kim once did, and Ethan's body remembered it instantly. Take the scene with Ethan and Barry, sharing a beer. Something small, something simple, something that to Ethan symbolized freedom. For years, alcohol had been painted as forbidden, worldly, even sinful inside the Plath household. So for Ethan, drinking with his father wasn't about rebellion. It was about finally living his own life. But when Hannah responded, she didn't scold him outright. Instead, she softened her tone, tilted her head, and framed it as concern. She said things like, "I just don't want this to become a slippery slope," or, "I know your heart, but I worry what this leads to." Do those words sound familiar? They should, because they were nearly identical to the phrases Kim used when Ethan or his siblings ever questioned her rules. "I'm not angry, I'm just concerned for your soul. I only worry because I love you." Kim wrapped control in care, and suddenly Hannah was doing the exact same thing. Then there was the camping trip. Ethan, exhausted and needing rest, suggested taking a break. Hannah, instead of validating his need, gently redirected it into obligation. She said something like, "Well, you can rest later. Right now, it's important we make the most of this." And just like that, Ethan's personal need disappeared beneath someone else's expectation. It was in those moments, strung together, that the truth became impossible to ignore. Hannah wasn't just speaking for herself. She was echoing Kim, word for word, tone for tone, frame for frame. And that's when Ethan began to crumble. Fans saw it on screen, the way his shoulders slumped, the way his eyes went distant. He wasn't in that present moment anymore. He was a boy again, sitting in front of his mother, being told that his desires were selfish, his independence dangerous, his silence the only safe response. The collapse wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud, but it was devastating. Because in Hannah's gentle words, Ethan didn't hear support. He heard his past, and no matter how hard he tried to escape, the cycle had caught up with him. When we think back to earlier seasons of Welcome to Plathville, Olivia was often painted as the disruptor, the outsider who came in and stirred up conflict. She questioned rules, she encouraged Ethan to explore life beyond what his parents had allowed, and she refused to sit quietly when she felt injustice. To many viewers at first, Olivia looked like the problem. But with time, and with what we've now seen in Ethan's marriage to Hannah, that picture looks very different. Olivia wasn't the villain. She was the mirror. She forced Ethan to confront things he'd been conditioned to avoid. Yes, it caused fights. Yes, it created chaos. But it was honest chaos. Olivia's push was uncomfortable, but it was also rooted in truth. That freedom comes with friction, that growth is messy, and that silence isn't peace if it means burying your own needs. Now compare that with Hannah. On the surface, she offers the opposite. She is calm, gentle, supportive. Her smile suggests acceptance. Her voice never rises. To the outside world, she looks like the dream partner for a man who grew up in such a strict household. But listen carefully to her words. Look at the way she frames Ethan's choices. That same calm tone masks an insistence that things must be her way, wrapped in prayer and concern. And just like Kim, Hannah's control doesn't come through arguments. It comes through quiet dismissal of Ethan's independence. Olivia challenged Ethan, even if it hurt. Hannah comforts Ethan, even as she quietly erases his voice. One path is fire, the other is ice, and yet both demand a choice. Grow through the pain or shrink into silence. What's heartbreaking is watching Ethan gravitate toward the shadow he knows best. Now compare that with Hannah. On the surface, she offers the opposite. She is calm, gentle, supportive. Her smile suggests acceptance. Her voice never rises. To the outside world, she looks like the dream partner for a man who grew up in such a strict household. But listen carefully to her words. Look at the way she frames Ethan's choices. That same calm tone masks an insistence that things must be her way, wrapped in prayer and concern. And just like Kim, Hannah's control doesn't come through arguments. It comes through quiet dismissal of Ethan's independence. Olivia challenged Ethan, even if it hurt. Hannah comforts Ethan, even as she quietly erases his voice. One path is fire, the other is ice. And yet both demand a choice. Grow through the pain or shrink into silence. What's heartbreaking is watching Ethan gravitate toward the shadow he knows best. After years of being told that Olivia was too much, too angry, too critical, Hannah's softer approach must have felt like a relief. But that relief was short-lived, because underneath the softness was the same system Ethan thought he left behind. And this is where the cycle reveals itself most clearly. Olivia wasn't perfect, but she was a truth-teller. Hannah isn't loud, but she's a continuation. One broke the pattern open, the other stitched it shut again. For fans watching, it reframes everything. Olivia was never the villain. She was the one willing to stand in the fire of conflict for the sake of honesty. And Hannah, whether knowingly or not, became the shadow of Kim, the smiling echo of the same old prison. By the time Ethan sat in silence, shoulders slumped, eyes empty, it was clear that this wasn't just about a beer, or a camping trip, or even a marriage disagreement. What we were witnessing was the weight of years pressing down all at once. Ethan had run from Kim's control, but he hadn't escaped it. He'd walk, head straight into its reflection, dressed up differently, but carrying the same message. Your choices aren't really yours. Your peace comes only through compliance. And if you resist, you're not just wrong. You're unloving, unfaithful, even unsafe. That's the real tragedy. When control disguises itself as care, it becomes almost impossible to fight. Loud arguments you can resist. Clear rules you can rebel against. But when someone says, "I'm only saying this because I love you," or "I prayed for your strength," how do you argue with that? It doesn't sound like a command, but it feels like one. And Ethan's nervous system recognized it instantly because he'd heard it all before from Kim. This is why viewers felt such a chill watching those episodes, because the repetition was undeniable. Ethan's silence, his collapse, wasn't just about the present. It was about the past coming back like a ghost, reminding him that the prison he thought he left still had its grip on him. And that's what makes Ethan's story such a cautionary tale. It's not just about one man, one marriage, or even one family. It's about how cycles repeat when they're not confronted. How survivors of high-control systems, whether religious, cultural, or familial, can end up mistaking captivity for safety if it comes wrapped in softer words. Fans online have pointed this out again and again. Some sympathize deeply with Ethan, saying they see their own stories in his. Others debate whether Hannah realizes she's echoing Kim or if she truly believes she's helping. But either way, the effect is the same. Ethan is stuck in silence, and unless he finds a way to name what's happening, the cycle will continue. So what do we take from this? That real peace is not the absence of conflict. Real peace is the presence of freedom. Silence may feel calm, but if it comes at the cost of your own voice, it's not peace it's suffocation. For me, the hardest part is that Ethan believed he had finally found peace. He thought the quiet meant safety, when really it was just another version of the same control he grew up under. And that's why I think his story matters so much. Because how many of us have confused silence with peace? How many of us have mistaken submission for love? These are questions bigger than one family, but Welcome to Plathville has given us the chance to see them play out right in front of us. I'm Christine, and this is Inside Hollywood Couples. Thank you for staying with me through such a heavy but important story. If you felt something during this breakdown, maybe anger, maybe sadness, maybe even recognition, please share your thoughts in the comments. I always read them, and I know so many of you see yourselves in Ethan's journey. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to keep covering these stories with honesty, empathy, and a little fire when it's needed. And if you believe that real love gives freedom, not silence, not control, then share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of your truth.